O'Reilly. The next time you need auto parts and accessories, trust the parts professionals at the 30 Raleigh-Durham O'Reilly Auto Parts stores. Our professional parts people know what it takes to get the job done right. Professionals have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for decades. Now you can too. Professional parts people, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, you are now tuned in to 110 Sports Talk. I go by the name Lynn Knack. Hey,
it's the best.
1 and 2 the competition, no competition. You don't believe it, turn us up. Sit back and listen. We bringing you the stats, all the breaking news and facts. Want the latest on the biggest trade war, this is where it's at. We don't talk it, boy, we live it. Got that all around coverage. From track and field, you name a field, we got it all covered. No diss to Derrick Rose, but we don't talk that bull. Just wait till he get healthy, better watch out for them bulls. Slide over the hockey, shout out to the Kings. Salute to LeBron James, y'all both got y'all rings. Looking for the real, you tune into the best. The sportologist and Mr. CJ Sports is up next.
I want to welcome everybody to the 110 Nation Sports Show. I am your host, Mr. CJ Sports. You can follow me at CJ Sports 1. You can follow the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. Glad to be here on this Tuesday night. I'm glad the North Carolina weather has finally cooled down. We're looking today probably the hottest day for the next 10 days, and it didn't even make 80. It was right at 80. We're looking at mid to lower 70s. I say what, the window's been open a lot over the last week, and we'll be up and open over the next couple of weeks a lot. We're looking forward to this cool weather and taking a break on this electric bill. So definitely looking forward to that. But even more so, looking forward to the opportunity to bringing you the number one night on the Sports Radio Network. Yes, Tuesday night, the 110 Nation Sports Show. We got Patrick Taylor from Line Blowers joining us at 10 o'clock to finish our NFL conversation. And then we got our very own NHL expert, Izzo, joining us at 10:30 to talk NHL and preseason. Make sure you guys check out Izzo, our NHL experts, over on Twitter. Yes, he has set him up an account, and he's wanting to be more active and have conversations with his fellow Buckheads. And the Twitter handle, at 110 Buckhead. So make sure you guys check him out over there, conversate with him. Anything you want to talk to him NHL-wise, he is more than happy to oblige and get down and talk some NHL with you guys. So make sure you guys do that as well. Check out our website over www.the110nation.com as we constantly have that updated with things going on around the 110 Nation. Also, check out our blog site. We've had a couple breaking news items come out over the last couple hours. So make sure you guys check that out over at www.the110nationsports.com. Tell you what, it's just a great night. Got to look at numbers and compare notes, and I tell you what, over the last 2 months, the growth of the company and the show has just been mind-blowing. I got to thank everybody. I got to thank the word of mouth, the spreading of the show. We've about doubled our viewership or listenership, I guess, from 2 months ago when we brought the show back and got the network going again to where we're at this month. So definitely a great feeling to see the numbers constantly grow in the direction we need it to grow. So I got to thank everybody. Interested in joining the 110 Nation, maybe you want to co-host or host a show, come right for our blog site over at www.the110nationsports.com. Or maybe you want to help be an admin over our Facebook group, the 110 Nation, or help us with social media in general with our fan pages or Twitter. Or maybe if PR or marketing is more your expertise, all you do is hit me up, MrCJSports@gmail.com. or if you're interested in coming on the show, you're an athlete, part of some kind of athletic organization, some kind of team. Maybe you got a blog or a podcast yourself. You want to come on and promote it and talk sports, kind of what we do with Patrick Taylor from Line Blowers and his site over there. Or maybe you got a charity or foundation and you want to come on and promote it. We love to help promote any kind of charity foundation work, and more specifically, love to try to get involved. So make sure you hit up Miss Lee at lee_110nation@yahoo.com. Speaking of charities, make sure that you guys continue to donate your soda tab lid to the Dylan Martin Racing Team, as they are collecting those to help raise money for the Shriners Hospital. Always doing a great thing over there. Glad to help be a part of that. Also, we have teamed up with Seek to Destroy Cancer. They have a wrestling match with some pretty big names coming up. Farouk from the WWE, also known as Ron Simmons. EC3, the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Moose, the former Atlanta Falcon / Honor Ring Wrestling. The wrestler we're actually going to be sponsoring. A lot of great things going on. March 12th, 2016 here in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Make sure you guys check that out. Continue to follow them as they constantly have a lot of things going on, and they're constantly getting new names and bigger names going on for this Seek to Destroy Cancer wrestling match that they got coming up. So make sure you guys help them out and spread the word, and we'll be posting that on our Facebook page again throughout this week. Speaking of Facebook page, if you guys not like us, you guys to jump over to Facebook and like us. You got my fan page, Mr. CJ Sports. You got the sport and side of the house, 110 Nation Sports, and you got the radio and guest side of the house, 110 Nation Sports Radio. So make sure you guys check that out. Drop us a line. Let us know that you've liked us, and help us continue to spread like we have been over the last couple months. It's been a wonderful ride. I can't thank Izzo enough. Patrick Taylor, Shorty, Miss Lee, Steve Billmeyer over Racing with Big Sweat, Chris Creighton over Racing with Big Sweat. All these people making this network and the 110 Nation itself continuously growing. It's a great feeling, and I'm just glad to have an opportunity to have these people part of our company and helping us build this to be bigger and better than we've ever expected it to be, and continue to grow. So make sure you guys and I just lost my thought right in the middle of what I was saying. I tell you what, I gotta stop looking at things. Every time something catches my eye, it always throws me off. Like I said, we got Patrick Taylor from Line Blowers joining us at 10 o'clock. We got Izzo joining us at 10:30. But before then, we got some topics we got to jump into. It's been an interesting day in the sporting world. I tell you what, I know we're going to talk about this a little bit later on, but the New York Jets, 2-0. I mean, who's seen this coming? Who would have thought that the Jets instantly go from the bottom seller team, the bottom feeder with Geno Smith as their quarterback, to a real threat to the New England Patriots with Ryan Fitzpatrick as the quarterback. Didn't see that one coming. We saw Ryan Fitzpatrick have a decent season and fooled the Buffalo Bills into that nice big contract. But once he got that contract, he kind of fell off the face of the earth. Kind of bounced around a little bit, went to Houston and whatnot. Didn't really think that the Jets were really going to make much of the whole Ryan Fitzpatrick ordeal. And, of course, Geno Smith being Geno Smith and letting his youthful ignorance get the best of him, sitting at the sidelines and watching Ryan Fitzpatrick had the job that potentially could have been his. And like I said, Ryan Fitzpatrick making the best of the opportunity. 2-0, found him a target, Brandon Marshall. Those two looking really good together. But 2-0, I mean, wow. I guess I got to stop going with the JETS, that SUCKS, sucks, because they're not sucking right now. I think that was the most tweets, or not tweets, but text messages and messages period I got today. Well, it was about the New York Jets and just by how blown away that everybody is of the Jets, and nobody expected the Jets to be sitting at 2-0. End up turning over the the Indianapolis Colts 5 times. You had Andrew Luck throwing 3 interceptions and losing a fumble himself. Just not the Indianapolis Colts that we was expecting. Fitzpatrick going 22 of 34, 244 yards, almost 65% of completion, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. Andrew Luck, almost the exact opposite, 21 of 37, 56%, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions. Chris Ivory obviously helped out a little bit with that 57 yards. Frank Gore, oh my God, that fumble at the 1 yard line, nobody even touched you. What happened? What happened to Frank Gore? You go from San Francisco, not that, he was the most secure ball carrier in the world, but I mean, this is Frank Gore. This is a veteran running back. This is something that's not supposed to happen. So Brandon Marshall, 101 yards. Eric Decker got 97 yards. Kind of divvying up the ball a little bit. Found him a couple of receivers he's really liking. Of course, they're still playing without their draft pick. Their speedster out there. So I know once they finally get all these pieces together, this New York Jets team might be something serious. I don't think anybody saw this coming at all. And 2-0, tied with the Jets, looking better than the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. I mean, honestly, I was looking at the New England Patriots, the Miami Dolphins, the Buffalo Bills, and then the New York Jets. And it's nowhere close to nowhere close. Well, I might say nowhere close. Miami is below, and then Buffalo, but those Jets just kind of threw it off. We'll keep up and see how this New York Jets team can continue on. Is this Jets team, built to go week in and week out? Next week against Philadelphia, I have Philadelphia in my football pool. I don't imagine. Well, in one football pool, we got to have our picks in Monday. So, honestly, I was expecting the Jets to be 1-1 by the time my picks got turned in. But at the same time, Philadelphia can't suck forever. DeMarco Murray has to get more than 2 yards at some point. The craziness of the New York Jets. You go through the embarrassment of the Rex Ryan era and the butt fumble era and the Geno Smith era and everything else. You've been kind of embarrassed yourself the way through, and now you actually look like a legitimate team out there, and I think it's taken a lot of people by surprise. Really don't know how to act. Tell you what, ever since Tony Romo went down, we're start pointing fingers everywhere else on who's the best team in the NFC East and who's going to take it. And there's actually people out there that think the Washington Redskins can muster up the opportunity to take this division. I think as long as you keep RG3 on your team, you got too much off the field distractions, and it's going to continue to be that way. For you to be consistently good enough throughout the season to take the NFC East. Giants, you lost 2 games by 5 points. a turnover here, stopping on a third down there. The Jets could be 2-0. Or sorry, the Giants could be 2-0 instead of 0-2. You know, if I got to pick somebody other than the Cowboys, I mean, that would be my pick. But are we absolutely positively closed-minded to the fact that Brandon Weeden, who finally is on a team that he has got the same offensive coordinator for 2 years in a row for the first time through his college and pro career, a system that he has had a chance to actually get to know, learn, and kind of practice with. He's no young, wet behind the ear football player. He's in his 30s. I don't want to look too deep into the 7 seconds for 73 yards and a touchdown, but I do got to weigh in a little bit on that. I mean, a lot of backup quarterbacks come in and they do not go perfect, and a lot of times the play calling stays away from the away from the passing, and kind of just go ground and pound and a pass here and a pass there, and it is not how the Cowboys handled it. They went in and they continued doing business as usual, and obviously there's a lot of confidence in Jason Garrett and the offensive side of the ball and Jerry Jones, and I just can't see bailing on the Dallas Cowboys at this point. I mean, you're up 2 games and it's in at 2-0, and yeah, your schedule is not quite favorable to not have Tony Romo back there. Even at worst case scenario, you split the next 8 games, you're sitting at 6-4. That's not too far off from being at the top of the league at that. Washington is going to be a 500 team at best. Philadelphia is going to be a below 500, and the Giants, who knows? But I couldn't imagine after 10 weeks them being much better than the 60% team. So why not? Why not win at week 10, week 11? When Tony Romo comes back and you're a little bit above 500, why can't they finish off? Why can't they finish off 12-4? Why is there not enough confidence that Brandon Weeden can at least split the games that he is in? Not asking for a lot, just go 500. Is that too much to ask of Brandon Weeden? Is that too much to expect out of the critics and the fans and everybody else out there that's been weighing it all day long? I just don't see it being that far-fetched. You got the Falcons 2-0, and you're playing at home against the Falcons. Yes, the Falcons have looked very impressive this year, but we've watched this Falcons team over the last 2 years kind of have its ups and its downs. Then you go to the Saints. Okay, the Saints have lost like the last 6 games at home or something. They have not been good at all. They're 0-2. They just lost to the 2014 worst team in 2014, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And on top of that, you lost to a team led by Jameis Winston. Are you serious? So I know a lot of people are writing off the Dallas Cowboys against the Saints, and there's a possibility Drew Brees is going to be out for a few weeks. We've heard reports of Drew Brees possibly not playing. Yes, the Patriots game, I don't really think it matters who you put in. It don't matter. Yeah, in the words of The Rock, it don't matter. It don't matter if it was Tony Romo and Des Bryant on the field. The Patriots are the Patriots, and that was going to be a game that the Dallas Cowboys probably weren't going to win anyway. So that's really neither here nor there. You're at New York against the Giants. Honestly, the way that the Giants have played, and we've seen this in Week 1. There's no reason to believe that Brandon Weeden couldn't lead a Dallas Cowboy team to victory. Seattle, have you seen that defense lately? It don't matter if Cam Chancellor's on that team or not. The contract's $164 million guaranteed, the most in the last handful of years. Really starting to stretch that defense and that team thin period. I've seen Richard Sherman get burnt more times than I could count this season. So that's a very winnable game. Then you got the Eagles again, and unless something turns around from last week till November 8th when they play them again on Sunday night, why should I believe that the Eagles could come into Dallas and beat the Dallas Cowboys. Then you go against the worst team in the NFL, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Then you go against Miami, who just lost to Jacksonville. And at that point, I believe they were looking at the Buccaneer game to come back anyway. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yeah, roughly the Buccaneer game anyway. Either the Buccaneers or the Dolphins. So, then you got the Dolphins or the Panthers, which, Tony Romo was expected to be back for the Washington Redskins game, Green Bay, Jets, Buffalo, and Redskins again. So, it's not. I can honestly see them pulling one off against the Falcons at home. I can see them going to beat the Saints. Yeah, I don't see them beating the Patriots. I can see them beating the Giants. I can see them I can see them winning at home against Seattle. Even with Brandon Weeden as your quarterback, I can't jump off the Dallas Cowboy taking that division train, because the schedule to me is, yes. Oh, I thought you wanted something, you did. Okay. But even with Brandon Weeden as the quarterback, I can't jump off this train, because their schedule is not that horrible. And it is very easily winnable, or at least above 500, and at worst even 500. So until we see the next week or two how Brandon Weeden plays, I just can't jump off I just can't jump off the Cowboys winning this division train. I just can't. T.O. is weighed in. He would like to have an opportunity to come back and play for the Dallas Cowboys. Could you imagine? Could you imagine Terrell Owens back as a Dallas Cowboy? And it was a funny conversation at work today, because it was brought up that I was talking to a conversation with a customer about the fact that T.O. wants to come back and have another run with the Dallas Cowboys, especially with Des Bryant being out. And, I'm not an anti-T.O. I know that he runs his mouth, and he caused a lot of off-the-field distractions that were really unnecessary. But on the field, Terrell Owens was a great receiver, and may not be first round ballot Hall of Famers, but he is definitely a Hall of Famer. Stats can't lie, and there's a lot of questions whether or not he'll be a first ballot Hall of Famer. We've just seen too many talented receivers not become first round ballot. So there's a lot of discussion whether or not he'll actually be first round ballot. But for his age, he's in phenomenal shape. A lot of people half his age would love to have the physique and everything that Terrell Owens has to offer. And which led me into also Herschel Walker and the fact that he's still MMAs, and the fact that he still says he can run with a 4.3 or 4.4, whatever it is. And talked to a customer, and I thought that he wasn't too far from my age, maybe at worst mid-20s. And he looked at me with this dumbfounded look on his face and said, "Herschel Walker? I don't know Herschel Walker." My jaw about hit the ground. Am I really that old that I'm talking to a generation of fans that don't know who Herschel Walker is? And as much as Herschel Walker still stays in the sports news with his fighting and the fact that he is a freak of nature and is still physically gifted, how do you not know who Herschel Walker is? So it really just blew my mind that he had no idea who Herschel Walker was. And so that was kind of an interesting conversation. Of course, the Texas governor is still lobbying for Tim Tebow to be on that team. That would be an interesting combination, Tim Tebow and T.O. I think that would be a conflict of religious interest there. Obviously, the addition of Matt Castle to the Dallas Cowboys, they did a trade with the Buffalo Bills to acquire Matt Castle. And don't know about that pickup. outside of a Bill Belichick system, Matt Castle's really been garbage. 2010 was his best season. Put on a pretty decent season for the Kansas City Chiefs, but outside of that, since 2005, he has not really had a season to brag about, or to really even talk about. Injuries, lack of confidence, 97 touchdowns versus Okay, can I get back to the show now? Anyway, so the Matt Castle trade, I'm waiting to see what the Cowboys actually gave up to kind of weigh in on how bad of a trade it was. The only thing that has been released so far at this point is there are late draft picks involved, but I'm curious to know if there was a player and which player that was also involved with this move as well. Also, with the Dallas Cowboys, it's just been a day for the Dallas Cowboys. Obviously, everything happened at once, and there's even rumors right now that Jason Witten won't be playing this weekend either against the Atlanta Falcons. Earlier on Tuesday, they brought up practice squad quarterback Kellen Moore to the 53-man roster, giving Brandon Weeden a couple backups. So they obviously are trying to put themselves in a position to make sure that Brandon Weeden and Matt Castle, since he is injured prone, there's plenty of quarterbacks. Of course, if anybody doesn't remember, Kellen Moore was the former Boise State quarterback that helped put Boise State on the map. Back in the day when Boise State was playing and beating up on a bunch of nobodies and everybody was overhyping them for a national title, yeah, that Kellen Moore. He signed with the Detroit Lions in 2012. Really not done much. And he played with the Detroit Lions from 2012 to 2014, and then now, obviously down with the Dallas Cowboys, and has been called up. He'll be holding the clipboard for Matt Castle and Brandon Moore. All that college career, two-time All-American. 50-3 as a starting quarterback. We're not going to count the inflated numbers. You did play with Boise State. Won the Mako Bowl, 2011 Mako Bowl, and 2010 Heisman Trophy finalist. She ended up being a backup for a 30-year-old rookie, and in his third season, and Matt Castle, who had one season in the sun under a Bill Belichick system, and that's you get called up to do that. So, good luck. Good luck to the Kellen Moore. Oh goodness, Anthony Bennett. The word was kind of shocked, and jaws kind of hit the ground when we watched Anthony Bennett get drafted number 1 by the Cleveland Cavaliers in 2013. A lot of people are questioning whether or not the Cleveland Cavaliers saw something out of Anthony Bennett that nobody. And I mean nobody. And once again, I stress nobody had seen. And by the end of the 2013 season, we realized that the 2013-2014 season, we realized quickly that the Cleveland Cavaliers didn't see anything, or if they did, it was an optical illusion, as they sent him a packing in the Andrew Wiggins trade for Kevin Love deal, putting Anthony Bennett on the Minnesota Timberwolves team for the 2014-2015 season. The Anthony Bennett and the Timberwolves have decided to come to an agreement on a buyout, giving Anthony Bennett the opportunity As long as he doesn't get picked up in the waivers in the next 48 hours to become an unrestricted free agent, if he clears waivers, he'll become an unrestricted free agent and able to sign with any team of his choosing that offers him a deal. If Bennett clears waivers, the Timberwolves are still responsible for the balance of his buyout agreement while still getting a deal from any other team willing to sign him. I think that's not a bad deal. If he can make it 48 hours, which there's a couple of teams interested, and we'll talk about one of them here in a second. But if he can make it 48 hours, nobody picks him up on the waiver wire, then the Timberwolves are stuck paying the rest of his contract, and I think it's something like $5.8 million or something. And another team can sign him and get an opportunity to play for another team and get another contract. So not too bad for one of the league's biggest busts. Yes, Anthony Bennett will be known as one of the biggest busts in the NBA, going number one. He's had issues with that. He's had issues with injuries and too much talent and not enough room on the crowded Minnesota roster has Bennett wanting other options. The Cleveland Cavaliers originally took him, like I said, first selection of the 2013 draft, and he quickly produced one of the worst rookie seasons ever. Anthony Bennett will never live up to the number one draft pick hype. It just will never happen. Bennett will be playing for his third team in 3 seasons if he gets signed, and it isn't a coincidence that he is seeing no play time and will be moving on yet to another team. And it's not that Portland is a front runner. Bennett played his best basketball as a pro for Jay Triano and David Vanderpool, Portland coaches, and it's no surprise that Blazers general manager Neil O'Shea, will lean on his staff for any thoughts on acquiring Bennett. Portland is still $13 million below the minimum salary threshold, which could factor into a possible decision to claim Bennett. If not Portland, then who? Undoubtedly, somebody will take a chance. There's no doubt. It seems to be the lack of talent going around these days in the NBA. But after Cleveland making him the number one pick of the 2013 draft, nothing will surprise us when he finally signs the contract. Not who, not when, and for how much. It will definitely not be a surprise. But we'll definitely keep an eye on Anthony Bennett and where he ends up, the former 2013 number one overall draft pick. More about Matt Castle and Anthony Bennett if you go over to www.the110nationsports.com. As we've been trying to hook up some articles today, so make sure you guys check that out and check out the articles over there. But Raiders got to be back in the news. You had a great weekend, Baltimore Ravens. The same Baltimore Ravens that didn't allow the Denver Broncos to score a single offensive touchdown. And we scored 37 points. Here we roll in Monday, and the Oakland Raiders are center of attention, and it has nothing to do with the football team. It has to do with the football field. As you no doubt noticed, if you watch any actual NFL games this season, the NFL is going all out on the golden anniversary incentive, starting with the gold markings and logos on the field. Well, 30 of the 31 fields, Oakland, it seems, isn't playing ball. For once, that's not a literal statement of their performance. The Raiders have declined to paint the gold logo on the field at the Oakland Coliseum for home games. The Raiders have asked us not to do that. Chris Wright, Coliseum general manager, told Sporting News. Wright is also a vice president at AEG Facilities, which runs the stadium for both the Raiders and the baseball's Oakland Athletics. The NFL pointed out that the A's, who are technically still playing out the 2015 season, as the reason for why the logo hadn't been painted. As you can see below, the Raiders are still playing with the dirt infield thanks to the A's and haven't painted the 50-yard line Barker gold. Unfortunately, the NFL contention about the A's doesn't match with that of the Raiders have apparently ordered, Has nothing to do with baseball, right? Countered. The last 6 home baseball games are through this weekend, and there will be no gold marks for the rest of the Raiders' regular season. The Raiders are discussing their season behind the lack of ceremonial markings. Pro Football Talks speculates that the bidder about Santa Clara hosting the Super Bowl. It's also possible the Raiders could be angry at the NFL for any of the dozen reasons, or could just be channeling the spirit of Al Davis and playing Maverick for its own sake. The NFL will probably lift this flag, but it happened. If it happened in New England, it's a silver and black. I couldn't imagine. I'm sorry, but if I was the team owner, I would feel the same way. I don't know, if I was the Oakland Raiders and this was my field, the lines would be silver instead of white anyway. And it is what it is. But you're the silver and black. So why? What even makes a difference? To me, that's just a conflict of interest. I know it's petty, and I know the Oakland Athletics or the Oakland Raiders could come up with 20,000 reasons why they don't. But that would be my front running reason right there. That we're the silver and black. We're not the gold and black. That's just kind of a conflict of interest to our team colors and what we represent. And I would stand my ground on that. That then be able to throw out the fact that the Oakland Athletics are still playing as a reason and not doing that to the field, which doesn't make sense because you're either way, it's going to be painted at the 50-yard line. But interesting. That's all I can say. Oakland's got to find a way to be in the news, one way or another. If it's their performance this weekend and it's the way that organization has been run, it seems like no matter how we turn around and look at things, they find a way to find themselves in the news, and it's entertaining to me sometimes to see what some teams are willing to do to draw attention, if it be good or bad. So, big news in NASCAR today. Sunoco becomes 4th major sponsor of Daytona Rising. Sunoco is the latest sponsor of Daytona International Speedway's redevelopment project. The American fuel manufacturer announced on a multi-year deal Tuesday to become one of 5 major sponsors of Daytona Rising. The $400 million facelift taking place at NASCAR's most famous track. Sunoco will have naming rights to one of 5 fan injectors at Daytona. Chevrolet, Toyota, and Florida Hospital already agreed to sponsor injectors, leaving one naming right deal to be struck before the makeover is complete in January. The redesigned entry will include more than 20,000 square feet of display area for Sunoco, as well as a fan engagement experience that spans 4 concourse levels. Sunoco also will be having branding rights for one of the neighborhoods located near its injector. Each of the 11 football field-sized neighborhoods will feature retail and dining areas. Obviously big for NASCAR, big for Daytona, a sport. This button, this breaks me, and just totally distracted me. We're going to talk about this in a second. But obviously, the sport that is sponsor-driven and relies a lot on the sponsorships that put the bills on a lot of things. Obviously, this is a big deal for not only NASCAR but the Daytona International Speedway, as they continuously do facelifts on a track. We were there last year. Got to see a lot of things that they were working on. Wish we could have been out there this year to just see how the project is going and see what it's look like. And obviously they're planning on it being done by January 2016. So hopefully not only myself but the 110 Nation will be out there at Daytona this upcoming season. Definitely excited about seeing this, and this is what distracted me. Competitive eaters try to break Cubs' curse by consuming an entire goat. I tell you what, fans are willing to do about anything and believe in anything if you let them. Sometimes you just got to eat the goat. At least that's the plan of a group of competitive eaters and Chicago restaurateurs had to break the Chicago Cubs' famous curse of the Billy Goat. The curse was leveled up upon the Cubs by Billy Cianis, proprietor of the Billy Goat Tavern, who wasn't allowed to bring his goat into the 1945 World Series and declared the Cubs ain't going to win no more. They lost the World Series and haven't been to one since. So Chicago restaurant Taco in a Bag set up a stunt in which famed competitive eaters Takira Kuwabashi and six-time winner of the Nathan's Hot Dog Eating Contest and LA Beast, an extreme eater and YouTube personality, are coming to Chicago on Tuesday night to eat an entire 40-pound goat. The owner of Taco in a Bag, Pat Bertiletti, and Tim Brown will help eat the goat too. According to DNA Chicago, they're anticipating this will take about 5 minutes, which seems like so little work for 70 years of a goat curse. 5 minutes. You guys are expecting to eat 40 pounds in 5 minutes? You know, the Cubs have tried to break the curse before at no avail. They invited Sam Cianis and nephew Billy Cianis out to the 1984 playoff with a goat, and everything didn't work. He's been back a few times since, didn't work. Now that the Cubs are good again and a postseason berth looks likely, this is worth a shot. A 40-pound goat. I don't know what's more entertaining about this story is the fact that you got people coming in to eat a 40-pound goat and thought that this was going to break a curse. Or the fact that I'm looking at 1, 2, 3, 5 people. You're expecting to eat 40 pounds. That's 8 pounds each in 5 minutes. That's a lot of. I'm assuming that there's going to be other people out there eating. I couldn't imagine you honestly believe, and I don't care if you're a competitive eater or the hot dog eating this time we have a hot dog contest. I can't imagine you eating 40 pounds of goats in 5 minutes. That seems to be a lot of. I mean, that's a lot of meat. 40 pounds of meat in 5 minutes. I'm trying to look at my dog. Maybe that's not quite a lot of meat. I'm assuming my dog's about 40 pounds. So no, I'm not getting any ideas. But I don't know. It just seems like a lot of meat to be consuming in 5 minutes, and a lot of meat per person in 5 minutes. So, good luck, Chicago Cubs. I tell you what, sports curses, traditions, routines, anything and everything, it amazes me, and it blows my mind that there are actually people out there that they believe this. I joke about it. I have joked with Shorty that, when the Cleveland Cavaliers were in the playoffs, when she was home and not at work and was able to watch the game, the Cleveland Cavaliers would win. When she was stuck at work, or she was out running errands, then the momentum would switch. I joked with her last week when, matter of fact, week 1, when the Ohio State Buckeyes came out and jumped on West Virginia. She was at the house, and then she left, and while she was gone, that's when West Virginia, or not West Virginia, but Virginia Tech made that run and actually went up by halftime. And I texted her, I was like, you need to get home now. And she's like, what's wrong? And I said, while you was here, the Ohio State Buckeyes were up. Ever since you've been gone, the game has gone in the opposite direction. Not that I honestly believe that she had anything to do with it. It just gave us something to talk about and joke about. But I tell you what, some of these players, and more specifically some of these fans, they take their superstitious beliefs to a whole different level sometimes. And it's really funny to me to see this and hear this. But, yeah, competitive eaters, I guess you got to do something. I wonder what the Cleveland Browns would do. The fumble and the drive. I don't know if there's a way to fix that. One was an offensive thing, and you fumbled the ball. Thank you, Ernest Viner. And the other one, your defense just let John Elway, the Denver Broncos, go down the field and score. It's funny stuff. Oh goodness, who thinks these things? I would love to know the person that thought, this is based all off of someone not being able to bring a GOAT into the 1945 World Series. I mean, 70 years ago? Yeah. And 70 years later, they think that their fate could be changed because of a GOAT. They think that eating a goat is going to change. Who came up with this idea? Not, we'll let a goat in and hope this will change it, but we're going to eat a goat. We're going to sacrifice a goat. For some reason, I don't think that's how you reverse a curse by eating an innocent animal. I would think there would be a more appropriate or a better thought out plan versus eating a goat. We got to experience week 1 of the Chase, race 1 of the Chase last week in Chicagoland. Great race for those that missed it. We talked a little bit about it yesterday on the show. We also talked about it on Racing is Running, or Rowing is Racing. I keep wanting to say it backwards. I know I said it backwards on the show as I listened back to the show. Rowing is Racing. We talked about it with Steve Biltmeyer and myself. As that is our newest NASCAR show on Monday nights from 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Make sure you guys check that out. Also, Monday Morning Quarterback comes on 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to noon. Make sure you guys check that out as well. But points. We didn't talk about this last night, so we'll talk a little bit about the points. I tell you what, it's a scary picture. As you've got all 4 Joe Gibbs Racing, JGR cars holding the top 4 spots. Yes, you got them first, second, third, and fourth. Matt Kenseth, Denny Hamlin, Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch, with Kenseth being on top, but Denny Hamlin already locked into the next round with his victory, automatically puts him a bid in. For those that are new to the Chase format, you got 3 races between rounds, 3 races, new round, 3 races, new round, 3 races, new round, final race. A win automatically, if you're in the Chase, you're one of the 16 drivers in the first round, a win automatically gets you into the next round. After 3 races, that third race, 4 drivers will be eliminated. So then everything is reset for the next round, which will have just 12 drivers. You win a race in those next 3 races, you are automatically into the next round. If not, the highest point, the bottom 4 will be eliminated, and it'll take you down to 8, and then it'll take you down to 4, and then we'll have a final 4 at Homestead. Like I said, Kansas on top, Hamlin second, Carl Edwards, Kyle Busch, all tied. Well, not all tied, but hold the top 4 spots. A team that has won, 8 of the last 10, 9 of the last 11, something like that. Very scary team. A team that has gotten hot and found their speed right at the right time. Then you got Kurt Busch in the 5th spot with Logano tied with him. Jimmy Johnson takes the 7th spot. Brian Newman 8th because Lowski 9th. Junior rounds out your top 10. Martin Truex 11th. Gordon 12th. And if we were to be going to the next round now, the bottom 4 would be eliminated. They are trying to find their way into the top 12 so they can get into the next round. That is Jamie McMurray, Paul Menard, Clint Boyer, and then Kevin Harvick. Kevin Harvick's pretty much in a predicament that he has to win to get in. McMurray, Menard, and Boyer, McMurray being 3 points back of Gordon, Menard 4 points, and Clint Boyer 6 points are really close. They don't necessarily have to win, but they're about where they should be in the points. They are about a 15 through 25-ish type of drivers. So the consistency, this is not the Ryan Newman consistency. This is Jamie Mack, Paul Menard, Clint Boyer consistency, which is about 15th or so. That is not going to get them to the next round. Even though points, statistically, mathematically, they don't have to win to get to the next round, logically and realistically, yes, they are going to have to find a way to find victory lane in order to get into the next round. And I know that's not what Boyer, Menard, McMurray, and Kevin Harvick fans want to hear, but realistically, those 4 drivers that they expect to get into the next round, they are going to have to find victory lane to the next 2 races. If not, their run for the chase was really all for nothing. McMurray and Menard finding themselves in the chase is something that they normally don't do. It's good for them, and if you're going to do it, you got to go hard and go home. Strategy can be different. We talked about this a little bit on racing, Rubbing His Racing. Kevin Harvick, if he does not win a race in the next 2 races and does not find himself into the next round of 12 drivers, after the confrontation that happened at Chicagoland between him and Jimmy Johnson, obviously will make the chase very interesting. I have no doubt in my mind if Kevin Harvick mathematically becomes ineligible to win the chase, he will make sure that Jimmy Johnson then becomes mathematically eliminated from winning the chase. There is no doubt in my mind. That's kind of what you would come to expect out of Kevin Harvick. I'm not saying it's dirty, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying that it's simply racing. And if you felt that you were wrong by a driver, Kevin Harvick's going to make sure that he expresses that and returns the favor. Like we discussed on Rubbing His Racing, we don't really fault any of the drivers. You could point fingers at Joey Logano, who what are you going to point your finger at him for? Because he had a good restart, better than Jimmy Johnson and Kevin Harvick in front of him, and he ended up having to push Jimmy Johnson harder than maybe he should have, which got Jimmy Johnson loose. Should we point fingers at Jimmy Johnson, who simply wanted to come up and, in all reality, it was Kevin Harvick, but at the same time, it's early in the race. It's time to give and take. And then do I point fingers at Kevin Harvick, who should have gave up that real estate, would obviously benefited him and possibly could have made him at least finish the race. Who knows how the rest of the race would have played out, but he had a strong car, was running up front. He was, 3rd or 4th at the time when that happened. So why would I think otherwise? So why not why not drive to the side of caution early on so you can live to be aggressive later in the race? I mean, we was not but halfway into the race when it happened. It was kind of one of those moves that I know that Kevin Harvick wished he could take back, because ultimately you cost yourself an opportunity to win the race because you did not want to give up real estate to Jimmy Johnson. And, so I can't point fingers at anybody, because I feel that one is potentially just as guilty as the other. same time, I can understand where all three drivers could plead their case of being innocent. But with that being said, there's no doubt in my mind that if Kevin Harvick does not see the next round, that it might not be absolutely positively obvious, but we'll know that that's me returning the favor. That Kevin Harvick will find a way to make sure Jimmie Johnson does not become a 7-time champion, which also will make things interesting over at the relationship, because Stewart-Haas Racing is a pilot team of Hendrick Motorsport. Could be, conflict of interest or put a lot of strain on that relationship between Stewart-Haas Racing and Hendrick Motorsports. It will be fun to watch this play out and see. And like I talked on yesterday's show as well, out of all the matchups, all the rivalries, this was not the one NASCAR wanted. NASCAR obviously wanted to build and was hoping that we would have off-the-track conflict like we did last year. Oh, my God, like we had last year. That caused races to be sold out and viewers to turn in. And you saw some of the better ratings of NASCAR in a long time because of everything that was going on. And, of course, NASCAR is going to want to see this again this year, but nobody wants to see Jimmie Johnson and Kevin Harvick be your center focal of fights. And we know that NASCAR used the fights to help build the momentum for the chase and promote the chase and use it in the commercials and help build the excitement of the chase. How can you get excited about this confrontation here? Is Jimmie Johnson? I can't see him hurting anybody. I know that he has gotten frustrated and gotten mad, but I've never actually seen him get physical, and doesn't look like the type that would really try to get physical. We're wanting to see Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Joey Logano, Matt Kenseth, the usual corporates, maybe little Jeff Gordon. It's funny because, literally little Jeff Gordon, which I don't understand where Big Daddy comes from. Jeff Gordon is so teeny tiny. I have an 8-year-old son that's not much smaller than him. But even him getting in a confrontation is more eye-appealing and a better selling point than Jimmie Johnson. There are just certain drivers in the chase that I just can't see being that confrontational that you can build around it. Carl Edwards is another one. I can't see Carl Edwards, and Carl Edwards is a pretty big guy. I just can't see him being bad enough to be in a confrontation with anybody. Dale Earnhardt Jr., I can't imagine him actually trying to go fist to fist and fight somebody. Jamie Mack as well. Paul Menard, Clint Boyer, and we've seen Clint Boyer and Jeff Gordon dealing with that, and it happened in Phoenix. There are just certain drivers you just don't see them being. There's no Matt Kenseth and Kyle Busch and Logano. We're used to seeing that. We've not seen much out of Ryan Newman, but I could see him being a little bit more hard-headed. He just looked to me more like a Tony Stewart kind of scenario. Truex, I've never really seen him get worked up enough to actually be confrontational, but I could see him, and like I said, Gord. But it being Kevin Harvick and Jimmie Johnson, I just, for the sport's sake, I wish that it would have been somebody else. I wish that we could have I wish that it could have been someone else to help build this excitement as we get into the chase. I just, Jimmie Johnson, really, that's too bad to boil down to. God, I missed last year's chase already. And I know it's that because we really had a good race week one, but what we got to see and the build-up and the hype and the raw emotion that we saw even as early as week 1 in last year's chase versus this year really makes me miss. And it really sucks because no matter how good this chase is, just like any sequel, you will never duplicate the original, the first year. And unless we have a 8 to 10 driver brawl out there between the chase contenders, I don't think you can duplicate or even improve last year's chase. I think that's one of those things that is kind of unfortunately ruined for NASCAR. No matter how hard you try, it's not going to be anywhere close to the excitement and the tension and everything else that we got to see last year. But anyway, enough talk about NASCAR, enough talk about all these other topics that we've been jumped into tonight. We got 2 special guests joining us tonight, as we do every Tuesday night on the number 1 night on the One State Nation Sports Radio Network, Tuesday night. Love it. Love having the opportunity to have him, Patrick Taylor, from Line Blowers, joining us, and then, of course, our very own NHL expert, Izzo, joining us as well. You can follow Patrick Taylor on Twitter at Line Blowers. He's getting ready to tell you a little bit more. You can also follow our NHL expert, Izzo, at 110 Puckhead. And we'll be a little bit talking, there we go. I can just keep repeating myself. Talking a little bit more about that later on. But for this next 30-minute block, we got Patrick joining us. We got to talk some NFLs. We did not get through all the topics. I'm glad that we had an opportunity to talk for an hour last night. We really needed it. Hoping moving forward and we'll have more opportunities because we took the NASCAR section out of the 110 Nation Sports Show because with racing was rubbing at 7 o'clock. So we're always going to move him up to 10 o'clock. It just depends on how long he can stay, on how long Monday night is going to run. But I tell you what, week 2 of the NFL season, and we already have this much to talk about. I can imagine what it's going to be like when we get to week 16, week 17, first round, second round of the playoffs. But before we even get to that part, we got about 15 more weeks to talk about. So while we got those opportunities, those weeks to talk about, let's get Patrick on the show. Patrick, how are you doing tonight?
Good. How about you?
I can't complain at all, other than thanks to the New York Jets. Yes, the Jets, Jets made me go 9-7, which obviously we're going to talk a little bit about that, as I have gotten many text messages and messages, period, about the 2-0 New York Jets. Yes, I got to say that one more time to make sure that I'm saying this right. The 2-0 New York Jets. But before we jump into all that, I want to give you an opportunity to plug the site, the Twitter, the Facebook, anything you guys got going on over there at Line Blowers, anything else you want to plug in real quick.
Yeah, lineblower.com, your source for sports insight, sports prediction. We're on Facebook at Line Blower, and then on Twitter at line_blower. Follow us there, like us on Facebook, check out the site. Like I said, different insight in sports, different perspective you can't really find anywhere else.
We joked, I think, for most of our segment last night about the Jets and the fact that they were beating the Indianapolis Colts. Frank Gore fumbling the ball by himself at the 1-yard line. But in all seriousness, the Indianapolis Colts, 5 turnovers, 3 interceptions by Andrew Luck, 1 fumble. New York Jets, I think that Fitzpatrick to Brandon Marshall combination might be a very deadly combination this year, even with Eric Decker. They showed a lot of promise there, but it seemed that Fitzpatrick had a lot of confidence, and likewise with Brandon Marshall, with Fitzpatrick, that ball was going to be put in a place that Brandon Marshall either was going to catch it or he was going to manhandle that ball or whatever the case it was going to be. 1 through 2 weeks, is it more the Jets or more the opponent? Or is it that they played the Cleveland Browns, not a team that was not expected to do very well, and an Indianapolis Colts team that doesn't look like they are running on all cylinders? Or are we seeing a Jets team that nobody thought we was going to see this year?
Well, the Jets, the first thing they have is really good defense, and they have a defensive-minded coach in Todd Bowles. Like we talked when Geno Smith went down with that punch from his teammate, I thought Fitzpatrick would actually settle in well in that offense just because Fitzpatrick's been in the game long enough. He's a savvy veteran who knows how important it is to take care of the ball. Brandon Marshall's a perfect addition for them because as good as Decker was in Denver, he had Peyton Manning, had Demaryius Thomas, there to kind of cover him. So even though he's being paid like a number one receiver, Decker's best role is that number two guy. So with Brandon Marshall on the other side, taking coverage, demanding the attention from the defense, it's really opened up the Jets' offense. On top of that, you had their defense with Buster Skrine, Darrelle Revis, some of the guys they have on the front seven, and a really good defensive-minded coach. I think they're better than people are giving them credit for. The Colts are a disaster right now. I've heard a lot of things about Chuck Pagano and some tension there with the general manager. The offensive line is really, really pathetic. They have aging, skilled players, and Andre Johnson, Frank Gore, guys they're relying on that really haven't produced like they have in the past. So they need to figure it out and really decide what's their identity as a team, because as good as Luck is, as good as any quarterback really can be, in the NFL, if they're getting hit all the time, if they're having pressure in their face, they're just not going to be able to succeed. So back to the question is, are the Jets for real, or is it more their opponents? And I think it's more that they're probably for real, just because in this league you can't take any team for granted because the skill level is so high. But I really would like to see New York, play New England or play a legitimate contender, even though many have picked the Colts to be. They just aren't right now. So they're definitely better than I expected to be. And moving forward, it'll be interesting to see how it plays out.
Who would ever thought there had been a day that having Brian Fitzpatrick have to fill in for your starting quarterback would actually be an upgrade? But also, how much more deadlier could this team be once they actually get Devin Smith, the wide receiver from Ohio State, that they drafted to kind of be their speedster and help be a deep threat who's not played yet? How much more improved would this offense be with the addition of him? I mean, that gives you Decker, that gives you Brandon Marshall, Devin Smith, Ivory in the backfield, and a veteran quarterback. That as long as that offensive line could protect and open holes for Ivory as well, this offense could be a serious threat to overtake the New England Patriots, especially the way the defense is playing so far.
Right. I mean, Devin Smith, like you said, Ohio State grad, he's one of the players in the NFL that can really take the top off of defense. When I say that, he's so fast, he's so quick. They can line up in the slot, alongside Marshall, alongside Decker, and they're going to have to respect his speed over the top, because Fitzpatrick's smart enough to know the coverages and recognize the mismatches that it'll only open things up that much more for the possession type receivers that they have in Decker and in Marshall. So once he gets back and once he gets familiar, it does take a little longer for receivers to kind of get acquainted with the offense and that sort of thing in the NFL, but his speed alone will cause total mismatch for opposing defenses. So getting him back will only help stretch out the defense and allow more flexibility in the play calling for the Jets.
I tell you what, Dallas Cowboys all over the place in the news this last 24, 36 hours, whatever the case may be. Tony Romo being down for 8 weeks, Des Bryant the week before going down for about 10 weeks, Jason Witten possibly not playing next week. Rumors on the Texas governor wanting Tim Tebow to be a part of the team. T.O. saying that he's had his agent look into him making a return to the Dallas Cowboys. But the only thing we do know for sure is that the fact that the Dallas Cowboys have traded for Matt Castle. Yet to see what name or what player they possibly gave up. We know there's been discussions of late draft pick swaps as well. Matt Castle, to me, had one good season in 2010 with the Kansas City Chiefs. Outside of that, the only other time he was really impressive to me is in that Bill Belichick system. Should Brandon Weeden be anywhat concerned about his starting role for the Dallas Cowboys? It seems like there's been a lot of positive things, even from Jerry Jones, coming out about Brandon Weeden. And two, is this the best available backup quarterback out there and possibly fit for the Dallas Cowboys, or did they kind of jump the gun and not really shop around enough, in your opinion?
Well, they did. They actually spent yesterday. and the majority of the day today they worked out Josh Johnson, who had spent time in Cincinnati, worked out Matt Flynn, who was in Green Bay and then bounced around as well, and they also worked out Christian Ponder, who was cut by the Raiders and also spent time in Minnesota. They opted to trade for Castle. It ended up being Matt Castle and a 7th rounder to Dallas for a 5th rounder in 2017. So Cowboys basically pick up Castle and a 7th rounder in exchange for a 5th. Whedon, as far as him being concerned about playing time, I think it's more an insurance policy and a sign that Dallas is really going all in this year with the roster that they have. They want to make sure they're competitive while Romo's out. It's going to be 7 games at least that he's going to miss. And this also marks the 3rd time the Cowboys have made a trade to replace a skill player. Christian Michael they traded for right before the season started from Seattle. Dez goes down and make a trade to Oakland for Bryce Butler, and now they add Matt Castle. I think they're trying to cover all their bases. In the immediate meantime, Kellen Moore, who we talked about yesterday, was called up to the active 53-man roster. So Moore will back up Whedon in week 1, possibly week 2, depending on how Castle, adjusts and learns the system. The difference between Castle and Whedon, Castle's in his 11th year in the league. He's been on a couple different teams. Like you said, he had good success in New England, but that was really it. Granted, the teams he went to, Kansas City, Minnesota, Buffalo, really didn't have a system in place that New England had, and Dallas at least has a similar roster built with a really good tight end. Granted, he won't have the star receiver in Dez Bryant, but he has a great offensive line. So the great part about Castle is that he understands the game. He's not going to turn the ball over a lot, and I think that's the main thing they're concerned with Whedon is he going to really lose you the games, because they just need somebody that can manage the game, not lose you the game. So if Whedon struggles, they at least have a backup plan, and then they also have a backup quarterback who has experience in case Whedon as well does get hurt.
Well, one I'll go through the story, and then two I'll ask my question. But I got the opportunity, I don't know if you caught earlier in the show, but I had the opportunity to talk to a customer. I thought he was probably in his mid-20s, and I'm assuming that's about his age range. But I was talking to him. We just got talking about the Cowboys, and I was shaking my head because that's when I found out about T.O. wanting to make a return to the Dallas Cowboys. And I have to admit, for his age, T.O.'s in really good shape. There's a lot of guys out there half his age that wish they were in half the shape he's in. And that led me into talking about Herschel Walker. And I this grown man, I'd be willing to bet at least mid-20s, just have this dumbfounded look on his face. Talking about Herschel Walker and his ultimate fighting, and the fact that he still says I think he run a 4.3 or 4.4, and he's 52 years old or whatever the case may be. And he looks at me and is, who is Herschel Walker? I'm gonna have to look this person up you're talking about. And I just looked at him like, are you serious? How do you not know? Are you not a football fan at all? Because Herschel Walker still is in the headlines every now and then, especially when he made the comment, I think it was last season, that he was talking about he could still run, 4.3 or 4.4 or 4.5, whatever it was. But one, is there even a 1% chance that Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys would entertain the fact of bringing T.O. back to the team, at least until Dez Bryant came back on the field? Or is this just all a bunch of talk and then there is a 0% chance this will ever happen?
I would bet everything I have that there's a 0% chance it happens. The one reason, he played for Dallas and it didn't end well, and that was at the prime of his career when he was, as good as he had ever been. With that being said, he's 41 years old now, and I'm pretty sure he was represented by Drew Rosenhaus his whole career, so I'm sure that's his agent. But T.O.'s one, he doesn't have any money, he's broke. But two, I bet his agent makes calls all the time to see if he can get back on the field. So T.O. made a point in saying that he saw on the Romo injury that the receiver made a mistake in reading the coverage, that he should have broken off his route. And I actually thought that initially when the play happened when I was watching the game. But looking back, what happened was Romo had adjusted the play, saw Witten had an open coverage. Malcolm Jenkins from the Eagles slid under him. Romo, if he threw that ball, it was a pick six going the other way, and basically had to take the hit. T.O. isn't coming back for the Cowboys. I mean, he just as gifted of a freak athlete as he is still, and I don't doubt that he can maybe even play. It's not worth the baggage, and the Cowboys have been down that road one time and really had to rebuild after they got rid of T.O., and they're not going to do that again.
It's always interesting and entertaining to have T.O. in the headlines for one reason or
another. It is. He likes to stay in the headlines. There's no doubt about it.
I was watching the NFL Network earlier, and it seems that a lot of people have already jumped off the Dallas winning the NFC East playoffs or Super Bowl bandwagon train. I don't know if they'd ever would have won the Super Bowl, but I had the Dallas Cowboys taking the NFC East and potentially going deep into the playoffs. Do I think they're the best team out in the NFC? No. There's a couple other teams that do impress me. One to be in Arizona Cardinals, Green Bay Packers. Dallas is up there, but I don't know if I would put them in the conversation of actually making it to the Super Bowl quite yet. With that being said, I'm not ready myself to jump off them making the playoffs or at least taking the NFC East train yet. And watching the show, everybody is jumping ship. Everybody believes now we should be discussing the New York Giants, who, yes, they're 0-2, but only lost by 5 points combined, or the Washington Redskins. Can they mesh and put a playoff run together now that the NFC East looks to be weak, with Philadelphia playing the way they're playing, with the injuries going to Dallas, and you know, the Giants and their circumstance, you know, it's kind of open season right now in a lot of opinion. But I'm looking at the schedule, and I don't see how you can write off the Dallas Cowboys to this point yet. You're really only expecting Brandon Weeden to break 500 with his step-in role. And honestly, looking at the schedule, it's not too unrealistic to believe that he could do better than 500. You're home against the Falcons. Yes, the Falcons look great. Yes, the Falcons have probably the top wide receiver in Julio Jones. But this is the same Falcons team. For the last 2 years, we don't know what Falcons team is going to show up and what to really expect. And week one, the Falcons had to come back at the end to beat the Philadelphia Eagles. It wasn't like it was a walk in the park. And last week was a very close game against the Giants, I believe, 24-20 or whatever. So it's not like, even though the Falcons are sitting 2-0, it's not like they're wowing us against teams that ain't really that great at this point. So why is it so hard to believe that Brandon Weeden couldn't lead this Dallas Cowboys team to a victory? Then you go to the Saints. Yes, it's tough to go down to the Superdome, but the Saints haven't been winning at home. The Saints team is looking horrible, and Drew Brees might be out for a couple weeks. So there's a possibility that the Cowboys might luck out and not even have a Drew Brees-led Saints team that doesn't have Jimmy Graham anymore. So you've lost some targets and your number one quarterback. Yes, I don't care if you had Tony Romo and Des Bryant on the team. Them playing the Patriots the following week is probably a lost cause regardless. Jason Garrett against Bill Belichick, that to me is a no-brainer. Then you go to the Giants, which you've already beat them once, and you know that the Giants are inconsistent. They're not horrible, but they're not playoff bound still at this point. Seattle's got their issues on the defense. I'm not going to say Brandon Weeden's going to pick away that secondary. But, okay, if I got to take a loss, you know, that's the Patriots and the Seahawks at this point. Then you're home against the St. Eagle team you just didn't allow really to do anything. You've got the worst team in the NFL next with the Buccaneers, and I believe they're talking about him coming back around the Dolphins game. So now you got Tony Romo for the Panthers, the Redskins, the Packers, the Jets, all your really hard part of the schedule, in my opinion, based off what we've seen so far. Is it really that hard to believe that Brandon Weeden can't keep the Dallas Cowboys afloat long enough for Tony Romo and Des Bryant to get back, looking at their schedule?
You know, it's crazy to say, but I saw a lot of the experts saying it's the Redskins division now, and I don't know how you can say that. I mean, one, you point out the strength of schedule for Dallas. Even if Weeden only wins 3 of the 7 games, that still puts the Cowboys at 5-3. The Eagles and the Giants are both 0-2 right now. They have a 2-game lead on those guys. And in my opinion, the Redskins are not a threat at all to win the East. I mean, just because they beat a Rams team last week, that, yeah, they're good. You can't say the Redskins are the favorite. But to give you an idea, the Cowboys going into last week were 8-1 odds to win the Super Bowl. After Romo goes down, it dropped all the way to 25-1. 8-1 to 25-1. That's the same odds that you could get playing the Panthers to win the Super Bowl, the same odds you could get to have the Eagles or the Ravens winning the Super Bowl. I mean, Ravens and Eagles both 0-2 and really haven't been able to find themselves. If Romo was out the whole year, yeah, you'd have to write it off, but he's not. He's going to be back, like you said, for the Dolphins game about Thanksgiving time where, shoot, Dallas could still be in first place. And really, the thing about the NFL, the thing about anything is that you have to be able to overcome adversity. So if Dallas can get through the next 7 games and just hang in there and keep it close, they still should be the favorite to win the East. And if Whedon can't win 3 games, I mean, Dallas is going to change their whole game plan. They're going to have to run the ball more, control the clock even more than they do, and really rely on that defense. And people forget as well, they're getting back Greg Hardy in 2 games. They're getting back Rolando McClain in 2 games. So they're going to really rely on that defense to try to grind out wins to get themselves in contention to be able to win the East and then make that playoff run. And shoot, I mean, like the last 5 years, the East has come down to the very last game of the season. So when we're in week 2 going into week 3, I think it's way too early to write them off.
I'm sorry, but the next 7 games, it is not far-fetched in my mind for him to win 4. I could see them beating the Saints, the Giants, the Eagles, and the Buccaneers. I just can. I mean, that offensive line is protecting them. It was a fluke thing that the defense got to Tony Romo, and also him running around trying to get a ball that he fumbled. I give you the Seahawks, the Patriots, and Falcons maybe being games he's not going to win, especially the first week going against the Falcons, even though they're at home. But even if he wins 4 out of 7, that puts you at 6-3. There's no reason to believe it, and I can't believe the odds has went from one extreme to the other. I mean, you're talking about 2 teams, they have the same odds that are 0-2, and if we don't know anything else, after this week and listening to any NFL show, you know that any team that starts off 2-0 has a 63% chance of making the playoffs. And any team that starts off 0-2 only has less than a 12%. Those are stats that have been thrown out in our face ever since Sunday morning. So with that being said, how does a team go from being one of the odd-end favorites to go into the playoffs or Super or whatever to being the same odds with a team that we know has less than a 12% chance statistically? That, to me, is crazy to even try to fathom that.
It is, and a lot of it's just, how people perceive things and how the media inflates things. And really, I think, even with Tony Romo, to go into the, 9th or 10th game at 6-3, 5-4, I mean, if he had played the whole season, you're still have him right there in contention. So once they get him back, I mean, they're going to learn how to do things over the next 7 to 8 games that will be exceptionally valuable to them down the home stretch. I mean, if Dallas can really establish a run-first identity like they've really been unable to in the first 2 games, or if they can really have a defense that can win ball games, and then Romo and Dez come back, I mean, who knows, man? You're exactly right. It's pretty insane to kind of throw them in that same bunch, especially with the parity and the possibility, too, that you play out games they can win, but who knows? Maybe next week Tom Brady tears his ACL or Eli Manning gets knocked out, or injuries can happen to other teams as well. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But to count them out, to write them off, to throw them basically in a trash heap with teams that are struggling and can't even figure out what's going on, it's pretty wild.
Now, I don't know if you've seen the NFL Direct TV commercials.
Oh yeah.
The only one that I found funny, and I find it funny every time, is the high-pitched voice Peyton Manning. I know he's got 2 of them. He's got skinny leg Manning, but every time that I hear that high-pitched Peyton Manning, I don't know where I just got that out of. But that's just, another interesting topic that has gotten a little bit of attention, I'm not going to say a lot of attention, but has gotten attention, is Ndamukong Suh and his freelancing. You kind of knew what you was getting into when you went out and got Ndamukong Suh. They knew that $114 million contract, what his past has been like, and what kind of player he has been up to this point in his career, as he's gotten suspensions and fines for kind of being a dirty player. I know it's the NFL, and if this would have been the 70s, we really wouldn't be even talking about this player because that had been something that was very common back in the day. But this is the 2015 version of the NFL. How much are the Miami Dolphins' hands tied up with Ndamukong Suh and how he is going to play in his mind frame, that he is going to play how he feels that he needs to be played, and pretty much they need to adjust to what he wants to do versus trying to beat their head on a brick wall and eventually give up like the Detroit Lions?
Well, the Dolphins are an interesting case because they've had a lot of hype, in the offseason coming into the season. There was that Harvard study that came out that predicted they would go to the Super Bowl. They have, a talent-filled roster on defense. Suh, he's been voted the dirtiest player in the league for the last couple of years. And then you look at the tapes and you see what he does, and he is. I mean, he's a dirty player, but he's also a game changer, and he also is probably the most disruptive interior defensive lineman that there is in the game. I think the Dolphins' biggest problem is that Joe Philbin, the head coach, is just not a very good coach. For them to go into Jacksonville and lose like they did with the huge talent advantage that they have is crazy. I mean, if you look at how Joe Philbin came into the league, he was a grad assistant at Toledo in the 80s and worked in the college game until 2002. Never was a head coach, just offensive coordinator or offensive line. Goes into the NFL and starts working for the Green Bay Packers. He was their offensive coordinator from 2007 to 2012. And when Aaron Rodgers is your quarterback, it's pretty easy to look like you know what you're doing. I think me or you could probably call plays with him and be just fine. So he got promoted. He got the job. His first head coaching job ever was the Miami Dolphins, and they didn't have a focus about them. They didn't have a game plan that could handle a Jacksonville team that just isn't very good. And the thing about Suh is that when things go not so well, he starts to kind of go a little haywire, and when things do go well, he kind of manages himself a little better. So if the Dolphins continue to spiral, I would expect to see Suh continue to make some boneheaded plays. As far as the freelancing thing goes, that he was ignoring play calls, I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if he was, but it really goes back to the faith that you have in your head coach, and I don't have it in Joe Philbin, and I don't think the team does either, because the way they played on Sunday really exemplified that they don't trust the guy making the play calls.
A couple key matchups, in my opinion, coming up this weekend, and I just want to get your opinion on. Obviously, with the injuries with the Dallas Cowboys, this now makes the Washington Giants matchup Thursday night a little bit more intriguing, with Washington being 1-1 and the Giants being 0-2. This could have playoff implications. Obviously, Dallas can't afford to go 0-3. Washington, is going to try their best to go 2-1 in hopes that Atlanta will beat the Dallas Cowboys. Who do you take, and how big of a game is this really this early in the season for these two teams?
Oh, it's a huge game. That's the way the NFL in the last 5 years has weighted the schedule, where you play a lot of interdivision games in the beginning, and then you play a lot of your interdivision games at the end. So you'll start off with three NFC East opponents right off the bat, and then you'll wrap up with two in the very last two games, because they want high media attention on those games in the beginning to engage fans, and then they really want it at the end when the season's on the line. So it's almost like having 2 extra weeks of playoff football. I think with it being in New York on a quick turnaround, I think it definitely favors the Giants. The Giants could very easily be 2-0. They lost games in both Week 1 and Week 2 at the end. in the minute. Cowboys won in the last seconds. The Falcons won in the last minute. I think Coughlin kind of rights the ship and is able to figure it out. Kirk Cousins, who has never played well against the Giants, is going to be on the road with a quick week, coming off a win against a Rams team where the Giants are going to have a good amount of tape on him. I just think the Giants will take care of business and move to 1-2. Redskins will fall to 1-2, and then they'll be able to watch and see what Dallas does against Atlanta.
And one other matchup real quick before we let you go. I know Izzo's in the studio waiting to talk some NHL. You got the New England Patriots going against Jacksonville. I think everybody's going to have New England Patriots highly favored. I had to turn in one of my football pools already. I had to pick. They do theirs on Monday night just because of the way that their business hours run. So I picked Philadelphia originally to beat the Jets. This is before I had the opportunity to watch the Jets last night. So with the high possibilities of the New England Patriots and the Jets being 3-0, the matchup to be between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins now becomes a very interesting matchup of two 1-1 teams. Both of these teams want to try to stay pace with what potentially is going to be two undefeated teams. The other one now is going to have to fall to last place and kind of watch the separation get farther and farther, and playoffs reach getting harder and harder for them. How big is it for this matchup, and who do you have, the Miami Dolphins at home or this Buffalo team that, even though they lost to the Patriots, they looked really good against the Patriots. One of those 5 turnovers would have gone the opposite way. We might have had a different outcome, and how they manhandled the Colts in the first week. Both these teams look like, that they've turned their teams around and have potential of being a contender, but one of them's now going to be sitting at the bottom, and the other one's going to be trying to keep pace with 2 undefeated teams. Yeah,
I mean, Miami-Buffalo is definitely intriguing, kind of a similar issue there where you got the Giants and the Redskins kind of battling to stay in it early. I like the Bills, and the reason I say that, the Bills have had success against Tannehill. In the 6 times they've played him, they've won 4 of the 6. The Bills have an interior offensive line that should be able to handle Sue and the front 7 of the Dolphins. It is in Miami, but Miami's not a very difficult place to play, unfortunately, for the Dolphins and Dolphins fans. There's a lot of other things to do in Miami than go to a football game, and Buffalo should have a decent amount of fans there. Rex Ryan is going to really have something to prove by trying to make up for what he did last week, opening his mouth and then basically laying an egg at home against the Patriots. So I got to go with the Bills there to take care of business against the Dolphins. And like I said, I just don't trust Philbin, and I don't think his players do either.
There's a lot of good matches this weekend. I wish we had time to talk about them all. I mean, we got Oakland and Cleveland, even though they're 1-1. Either one wins, and they're still right there at the top. And it only takes a Cincinnati-Denver loss, and one of them could be tied for first. Indianapolis and Tennessee, who would have, that matchup, now, means a whole different element, as we thought that Indianapolis would be sitting on top, and, this could keep them buried at the bottom. Pittsburgh and St. Louis, obviously Pittsburgh needs a win to stay pace with the Cincinnati Bengals. What other matchups? Baltimore and Cincinnati, to me, that's going to be a great interdivision matchup. San Francisco and Arizona as well. Denver and Detroit on the Sunday night game, and then, of course, Kansas City and Green Bay. A lot of great matchups this weekend. Obviously, if you guys want to get more insight and get more of his opinion, you guys can follow Patrick over on Twitter at Lineblowers. Also, make sure you guys check out their site over at lineblowers.com. Patrick, I want to thank you once again for coming on and joining us and giving your NFL insights. Looking forward to week 3 and looking forward back to having you back on Monday night at 10 o'clock.
Sounds good, man. Hope everybody has a good week, and we will talk to you soon.
Yes, sir. You have a great night.
All righty.
That was Patrick Taylor of Lineblowers. Make sure you guys check them out over at lineblowers.com. Also follow them on Twitter at Lineblowers. Speaking of following, make sure you guys follow Izzo, or NHL Experts, at 110 Puckhead. Make sure that you guys get over there and do that. I know Shorty's listening to the show. I know she'll be jumping on Twitter when she gets back and following Izzo as well. I have already, and I know once Miss Lee catches the show, I'm assuming that she's at work because I've not heard from her yet today. I know she catches every show in the replay, so when we get her back on, or when she gets back, I know she'll be over there as well. But make sure you guys follow him. You guys want to talk NHL, you want to get his pick his brain, get his opinion, or even start a debate with him. All you got to do is hit him up on Twitter at 110Puckhead. But without any further delay, let's get our NHL expert Izzo in the studio and on the show. How are you doing tonight, Izzo?
I'm doing pretty well tonight, Jay. Pretty well. We got preseason that kicked off and been listening to a lot of hockey over this past weekend, so it's been a good weekend so far.
How exciting is it? I know what it was like to finally have NFL preseason and how even week one. I know what it's like when speed weeks for NASCAR is 2 weeks before the Daytona 500, and you get the cars back on the track, and you got the Bud shootouts, and you got the 150 qualifiers. I know what it's like to finally, in the sports that I truly love, get the sense of the season's getting ready to start with the preseason. What was it like for you this weekend with NHL preseason getting underway?
Well, it was pretty exciting knowing that we're just a couple weeks away from the start of the season. It's a little bit different in hockey than kind of like what football is. Some of these teams, they'll play back-to-back games in a single night, trying to work in young talent, work in the veterans to try and shake off a little bit of rust or whatever, just to get them loose and, ice in shape, and get them in ice shape, get the game speed flowing and again, and trying to work chemistry with new guys that are on the team. So, it's a very small window. Training camp isn't really that long compared to what maybe football or, what baseball is or anything like that. But it's when they hit it hard, man, and they hit it hard for a couple weeks. Play a few exhibition games here in the preseason, and then finalize that roster and, head into that, nice long 82 game season to try and make a stamp for themselves at the end of the year and possibly win a cup. So it's definitely an exciting time. I've been sitting here, just kind of watching SportsCenter, just jitting my leg and everything, just waiting for, hockey to come back. And now that we're so close, it's going to be it's like the most wonderful time of the year for me. It's kind of like my Christmas. So it's definitely time for some NHL, and I'm looking forward to it.
For those that aren't necessarily NHL puckheads and keep up with it, going into the preseason, how big is the roster, and what do they get the roster? Basically, what do they start off the preseason with roster to what they get down? We know the NFL, especially last week, they go from a 75-man roster down to a 53-man roster before they finalize. What is the roster like for the NHL?
Well, it is a little different in the NHL. You can have up to 23 players. 23 players on a team. Each club will have to have at least 20 players composed of 18 skaters and 2 goaltenders. Going into preseason, you got your draft picks that come in, guys that you've drafted in years before, trying to make a roster spot. Your roster could be composed of, maybe 40 to 35 guys, somewhere around in there. You could have, 3, 4, 5 goalies trying to vie for a backup spot. You can have, a lot more skaters trying to snag a position, whether offense or defense. These guys, they, go through training camp and everything, and some get cut, some get to stay a little bit longer and everything, and see how far they can go. It is a painstaking task to try and limit down to at least 20 to 23 players for your final roster. You got so many factors that factor into that with, team chemistry, line composition, and everything like that. Do you have your scorers with nothing else but your scorers? Do you put one of your scorers with a couple, hard-working guys that like to get down and dirty? This is the time where, you kind of figure out who plays with who and who's pretty good at playing with who, and who can really move the puck and communicate well without any hesitation, anticipating one's move and everything like that. So a lot of guys would go into camp a lot of guys looking to come out of camp wearing, you know, their respected sweaters or whatever. Some of them will just end up getting, all the young guys, most of them will end up getting sent down to AHL affiliate or, you know, CHL affiliate just to get more experience. So this is definitely a painstaking couple of weeks for these young guys because they're trying to make a name for themselves and stick around for a little bit longer. But usually you get about 35 guys into camp, if not a few more here and there, and you just try and work it down to a final, you know, 23 to 20 roster and, you know, pray that your name makes it on the list and that you get to skate alongside playing 82 games of, you know, some of the best hockey players in the world. And that's what this time this is what preseason is for, and it's pretty exciting there.
Now, I got one other question before I let you jump into you talking some preseason. I've seen that Erik Johnson signed a 7-year deal with the Avalanche, and it seemed to be a common question whether or not that was a good deal for the Avalanche, or more better yet, whether he was worth or has earned that kind of contract. What's your opinion on this contract? Was it worth it? Did Avalanche make the right move in securing him for a 7-year deal?
I do believe so. Erik Johnson is a very, very gifted hockey player. He definitely reminds the front office of a little bit of the old guys that used to be in there, you know, with Adam Foote and Rob Blake and everything. He has that essence kind of around him. He's a guy that has been there for a while. Good hard skater. He was selected to his first NHL All-Star game by Rob Blake. I'm sorry, Rob Blake picked him. I couldn't remember how that story went, but Rob Blake actually gave a lot of kudos to Erik Johnson and his play, and that is something that Colorado really desperately needs right now. They are not really big in the back end and everything like that. Erik Johnson is just a tank, U.S.-born guy, can really move the puck well, can play the body exceptionally well, and he's going to be a big asset to Colorado this year. Colorado had a few pieces moved around on him this year, and keeping Erik Johnson was a critical piece to keep in their puzzle to make it to the playoffs this year. The kid's only 27, and he's still got a lot of miles on them skates. We're looking for him making the American team for the World Cup this next coming season. Very valuable guy. Definitely deserve it to be an assistant captain, if not a captain, at some point in time in his career. Has put steady numbers through his years so far in the NHL, and definitely well deserved of a $7 million contract. I'm so kind of surprised he could have probably got a little bit more. I think he's happy with what he has, and I think he's going to put up some huge, astounding numbers now that he has a decent salary here in Colorado. So definitely a win for Colorado, definitely a win for Erik Johnson, staying in a familiar place, staying with a coach that, you know, he believes in, a system that he likes, and a system that he thrives in. So all in all, a very good move by the Colorado Avalanche, Jay.
Well, that's good to hear. I just like said, I've seen this deal, and I just seen a lot of questions thrown out there whether or not it was worth it or not. Week one, the first weekend of preseason, the first week, obviously NHL is a little bit different. They play multiple games back to back, you know, and multiple times throughout the week. So it's not, you know, the same as the NFL where we get to sit and we watch week one of preseason and kind of take away from, you know, from week to week what we've seen. But so far, from what you've seen of the preseason games you've seen, what have you taken away from the preseason so far? And has there been anything that has trended any differently than any other season? Such as, you know, in the NFL, you know, we might see the pass option scheme be a little bit, you know, more in effect than we normally, you know, there's always something that seems that it ends up being a new trend, or, you know, the players have, you know, adjusted to different styles that, you know, we're not traditionally used to. So is there anything that has been that in the NHL so far in this preseason, and more, you know, importantly, what have you taken so far out of the games that you've gotten to see so far?
Well, the few games that I have been able to watch are not, unfortunately, the ones that I've wanted to see, especially with the new rule change this year going into overtime with the 3-on-3 5-minute overtime. I've been really anxious to see that, and I haven't been able to see it yet. I've only read a few cap notes on it and everything like that, but I would actually like to see an overtime game with the new rule change and everything. Really, nothing has really stood out. No really big key injuries for anybody. The preseason did get started with 2 games. The Panthers losing to the Predators 5-2. Bruins beating the Devils 2-0. Really wasn't going a lot of that game. It was mostly all the younger guys. There were really no key veterans playing in any of these games. They're normally not usually in the first 2. Unless you have a back-to-back, 2 games in 2 nights situation. Monday had a few games. The Pens beating your Columbus Blue Jackets in an overtime shootout, which was one I wanted to watch but was unable to, because, like I said, I've been looking forward to to that 3-on-3 situation in overtime. Is something I'm excited to see, and just want to see how the game flows and how it works out. And could you run one offense and 2 defensemen, or two offense and 1 defenseman? There's so many different possibilities and line changes and combinations that you can do for that, especially with the talent that's out there in the league today. Flyers and Isles did a back-to-back yesterday. The Isles taking the first one 3-2, and the Flyers taking the second one 5-3. Braden Shen had a goal for the Flyers' first game. John Tavares had a goal for the Isles in the second game. Rangers and Devils squared off. There were a couple veteran guys in this game. The Rangers ended up taking this one 6-3. A couple familiar guys I'm familiar with. Jordan Tutu for the Devils. He had a goal. Adam Larson, who just got his contract for the Devils, he had a goal. Guy for the Rangers that I'm familiar with, being he was with Pittsburgh last year, Jason Megna. He had 2 goals for the Rangers, which was a very good thing for him. Jason Megna is a little guy, but he's got speed upon speed upon speed, and it's kind of dangerous, and I think that's what's going to really help the Rangers. I could see him taking a roster spot there up in New York. Hurricanes lost to the Caps also on Monday 2-0. The Maple Leafs and the Senators had a back-to-back deal with the Leafs taking both games of 4-3 and 4-1, which was kind of a shock to me, especially the state of array that Toronto's in. But reading recent articles about Mike Babcock up in Toronto coaching behind the bench has really enforced this system into his players, and they seem to be, executing to a T. Scoring 4 goals in a game is hard enough. Scoring 4 goals and 2 in back-to-back games is quite impressive. Sabres and Wild tagged off, which was kind of one I wanted to watch. Sabres took it 3-2. Jack Eichel, high number 2 draft pick for the Sabres, had a shorthanded goal, and really looked impressive in his skating ability. His hands, was very confident on the ice. Had a couple shots on goal and everything, and looked really solid. Looked really, really comfortable with his line mates. Oilers and Flames did a back-to-back. Oilers taking both of them, 3-1 and 4-2. Connor McDavid, through the 2 games, only had 2 assists, but he looked very comfortable. Looked very at ease skating, getting some quality shooting chances, kind of missing the net on a few of them. Is really is starting to settle down in that system. Kings and Coyotes also squared off. That one ended in 5-1. Canucks and Sharks squared off yesterday. That ended up 1-0 for the Canucks. And then there were 13 games today, one of which had just started, which is the Coyotes and Kings. That game just got on. Last time I saw these 3 games, Jets and Wild were tied at 0. Avs were up on the Ducks 2-1. Sharks and the Canucks were tied at 0. We had a pretty decent game going on right now. I think it should be almost over. Chicago was over the Wings 3-1. Jonathan Tavares had a Jonathan Taves, I'm sorry. Jonathan Taves had a goal and an assist, and Teuvo Teravainen had a goal. Caps and Bruins squared off today. Bruins won an OT. Yet again, another OT game I didn't get to watch. I was a little upset. Rangers and Flyers went at it today. Flyers took that one 5-3. R.J. Umberger and Wayne Simmons for the Flyers had 2 assists apiece. Stars lost to the Panthers today, 3-2. Jonathan Huberdeau had 2 goals. Jaromir Jagr had 2 assists, all for the Panthers. Another overtime game that I didn't get to see. Leafs over the Canadiens 2-1, which is astonishing because now the Leafs are 3-0 in the preseason right now, and I know preseason doesn't mean anything, but the Maple Leafs, they lost a lot of pieces this past year. Preds and Lightning went at it. That one was another overtime game. Preds won 3-2. New York Columbus Blue Jackets beat the Blues today 3-1. Ryan Johansson had a goal and an assist today, and a pretty impressive showing for the Jackets. Also, for our local fans, Pittsburgh Penguins took on the Carolina Hurricanes today. Unfortunately, Pittsburgh came out on top, 7-3. Kessel had 2 goals. Crosby had a goal and 2 assists. Letang had a goal and 3 assists. Kunitz, Malkin, and Hornquist both had 2 assists apiece. For the Canes, James Wisniewski, Justin Falk, and Jeff Skinner each had a goal, which is really good. These 3 guys definitely are going to be heavily relied on throughout this season, especially James Wisniewski on the back end. He's got a bomb shot, and he had one tonight. His goal tonight was pretty impressive. Justin Falk and Jeff Skinner, they've been here in Carolina for a while, big fan favorites. Definitely going to have to rely on them a lot more, especially Jeff Skinner. Jeff Skinner, he's a dangerous, shifty goal scorer. Has a really quick release. You blink, you're going to end up missing it. Kind of unfortunate for the Hurricanes, but Pittsburgh's offensive prowess was just a little bit too much for him, which was kind of scary to watch. The only thing that worries me about Pittsburgh is their young defense. Pittsburgh went up 1-0. Carolina marched it right back down 22 seconds later and scored. Pittsburgh took the lead a couple minutes later. Not even 30 seconds after that, Carolina goes back down and puts another one in the net. So if teams are watching Pittsburgh right now, they're definitely taking notes for all this. This is something that they need to address, and this is why they went out and gave Sergei Gonchar a professional tryout, see if he can make the roster for the upcoming season. But for the Canes, an all-around decent game. Offense was really clicking. Forecheck was amazing. Definitely putting pressure on when pressure needed to be on. Was really giving Marc-Andre Fleury in the beginning half of that game a little bit of a trouble, a little bit of a scare, couple deflections, one of them which went into the net. Was really looking good for Carolina there. But just that offensive, stacked team that Pittsburgh has, it just proved to be a little bit too much tonight. And I think Carolina should hold their heads up high right now. They definitely got a different team in there than what they've had. They're definitely rebuilding, and it's going to be a sight to see for them. But that is everything that has been going on tonight. There are more games scheduled tomorrow and everything like that. So I am looking forward to actually, hopefully, catching an overtime game and trying to, see what the feel of it is, and hopefully soon enough I'll get to actually see one. So, because all the games I've seen haven't been able to go into overtime yet, Jay.
I have a question, and I know you're an NFL fan, and I know you watch football, and we know how the preseason usually goes. That game 1 of the preseason, you might get your starters out there for maybe a half the first quarter at most, maybe a series or 2. Getting into the second preseason game, you might see them play the whole first quarter. Third preseason game, they might make it to halftime. And then the fourth preseason, they might play that first series, and that's really the extent. We might see them a half to 3/4 of 2 to 3/4 out of 16 possible quarters out there, and there's not a lot of contact, and they're trying to protect themselves for the regular season. Compare that to the NHL preseason. Are they as conservative, I guess the word I want to use, when it comes to the preseason, or are they a little more aggressive and put a little bit more into the preseason? I mean, obviously the NFL, there's been a lot of discussion whether or not there should even be 4 preseason games, and that's a debate that I would say go on for ages, but I think they're pretty close on making a decision. Either we're going to have 2 preseasons and games and 18 regular season games, or we're going to stick with the format we have right now. I think that's something that we won't be debating much longer. I think they're going to make a decision on that. But NHL-wise, is it the same kind of atmosphere, or are they more aggressive when it comes to preseason?
Well, I think how it goes is the younger the kid, the harder he's trying to make the team, is the harder he'll play. It's not really laid back like you would see in maybe an all-star game. It's nothing like that. It's still physical. You really don't see a lot of you won't see a lot of fights going on or anything like that, but you'll see some definite physical play, especially from the young guys who are trying to make the roster, and try and get a contract and everything like that. The older veteran guys that have been in the league, it's just a way for them to, get back into the groove of things, working on timing and everything like that, team chemistry and everything like that, because it's a crazy sport. There's a lot going on. You have to keep your head on a swivel, and you have to be constantly moving. If you're not constantly moving, then, you're not going to be productive at all, whether it's in forechecking, chasing down a puck in the corners, hitting somebody, driving to the net, even blocking shots. You always have to be on your toes. I mean, these guys train all year round. Some of these guys go and play in different leagues during, the summer and everything like that, and just continuously keep playing and everything like that. But these young guys, they're trying to make a name for themselves. They're trying to impress the general manager and the coaches and everything like that, and trying to earn their spot on the team. It's definitely a little bit more aggressive than what football would be, but at the same hand and token, it would be, it's not as bad for the old veteran guys. Most of the time, whenever you get maybe a 2 games back-to-back nights type of deal, you'll have one game where it'll be primarily your young guys, and you'll let them go out, play the system and everything like that, and see how they flourish together. And the ones that, do pretty well get plucked up and plugged into maybe the second, third line, maybe even a fourth line. Sometimes you might even see the young guys, just hop up on that first line. Guys like Connor McDavid and Jack Eichel, for example. They were drafted 1 and 2 respectively, and just plugged right into that top line because they have that it factor for the NHL, and don't really have to, necessarily prove that they belong there, but they have to at the same time prove that they belong on that first line, that, these guys, they want to see 40 to 50 points out of them. They want to see, they want to see how they mature, through an 82-game season. And if you can make the playoffs, can you learn from that, experience and everything, take in the bad with the good, It's something horrible to lose a 4-game series, in 7 games, and it's even worse when you get swept. So this is kind of a time where, guys it's really physical right now, just because we're only 3 games into the preseason. So it definitely gets physical. There's really little to no letting up on anything, really. Everything still gets hit. People still go flying. There's still penalties being called, depending on what kind of a player you have on the rink, So, I mean, it varies. Each team is different. Each team, there might be something that some coaches be like, hey, listen, look, let's tone down the hitting. We don't need anybody hurt. We're just going into the season. So some of these guys do the exact opposite and are fine. Some of these guys get hurt just like it is in football. Some guys might tear a groin or, rip an ACL or whatever. But there's really no holding back. These guys, they feel they can't afford to hold back. If you hold back in this league, it's going to be a long, bumpy ride for you, especially when you're in the ECHL or the SPHL, back down, far down on the ladder. So these guys can't afford that, and that's why they take it to the extreme to try and make a name for themselves, Jay.
Well, in the spirit of what I said I was going to do, I do have the San Jose and Vancouver game on, and so I'm going to make my best foot effort to catch as much of this game as I can tonight. I got to be up at 4:30 in the morning, so it won't be a real late and probably catch it all. But I did say that I'm going to try to get more knowledge and get more into it this season.
The next time you need auto parts and accessories, trust the parts professionals at the 30 Raleigh-Durham O'Reilly Auto Parts stores. Our professional parts people know what it takes to get the job done right. Professionals have counted on O'Reilly Auto Parts for decades. Now you can too. Professional parts people, O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.